Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world on this International Day for Universal Access to Information. My name is Cordell Green. I'm chairman of the UNESCO IFAP Working Group on Information Accessibility, host of this conference. I greet you warmly from Jamaica in your various capacities, and I see you from all over the world. And the operative word is universal, and we're achieving that this morning. My task is to introduce the MC and moderator for the fourth AI4IA conference. Andrea Millwood Hargrave is an independent consultant with an impressive career focused on global policy across the converging communications environment. She has published widely on media policy in an international context, and she was most recently the Director General of the International Institute of Communications. She is a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts, an associate of the program in comparative media law and policy at Oxford University. She serves as an expert with the UK Council for Internet Safety, and she's a member of the IFAP Working Group on Information Accessibility, among many other roles. So from Jamaica to the UK, the floor is yours, Andrea.
Thank you very much, Cordell. Cordell, let me add my welcome to this year's conference to mark the International Day for Universal Access. Building on the progress we have made in previous years, our focus remains on advancing our understanding of the myriad capabilities of AI and the need for awareness of its potential, as Cordell has said previously, for good or bad. This rapid progress has given rise to increasingly complex debates around its usage, regulation, and the pace of its advancement. And just this month, we saw the G7 nations come together to agree the Hiroshima process, aiming to ensure that the developments in AI and its use sit well with the shared values of the G7 nations. Indeed, the key players in the field of AI development, mainly the tech companies, agree that the evolution of AI models should be monitored, if not regulated. This complexity is unfolding against a backdrop of growing public awareness and expectations. It's my honor to introduce this conference, where we'll explore the multifaceted world of AI and bring together experts, innovators, and thought leaders to chart a path towards a future where AI truly serves the well-being of humanity. I am delighted now to introduce Mr. Al-Amin Youssef from the UNESCO Regional Office for Southern Africa. Mr. Al-Amin. I'm sorry, I've heard that, in fact, Ms. Nisha, who is the officer in charge of the UNESCO Regional Office for Southern Africa, is going to join us now. Ms. Nisha.
Good afternoon from this side. I am still in Delhi, not yet in Harare, but let me begin by recognizing and acknowledging participation of different individuals at various stages. Honorable Dana Morris Dixon, Minister responsible for skills and digital transformation in Jamaica. Ms. Dorothy Gordon, Chair of UNESCO's Information for All Program, or IFAP. We heard Mr. Cordell Green, newly elected Vice Chair of IFAP. Ms. Samruddhi Arora, Chair of the Planning Committee for this conference. And finally, among those present, speakers and participants, and not to forget my dear colleagues, Greetings from UNESCO Regional Office for Southern Africa to all of you. Let me also, at the outset, acknowledge and thank Mr. Green, Ms. Gordon, Ms. Arora, and you, Ms. Andrea Millwood-Hargrave, teamed experts and speakers, and colleagues in UNESCO Office for the Caribbean region, including the director, Ms. Anna Paolini, for partnership. Thank you so much for your leadership, effort, and contribution, and for collaborating with our office in Southern Africa for the 4th consecutive year. This year, the theme, as we all know, of the conference is the importance of the online space for access to information. Speaking of the theme in Southern African context, allow me to say that the region faces tremendous challenges in the direction of digital transformation and innovation for safe and open access online space. A safe and open online space enables citizens and residents of a country to access information related to basic services such as health, education, housing, water, etc. At the same time, it is also key to protecting human rights and promoting public participation in development, governance, and legal and policy processes. The online space is critical for the 4th pillar of democracy, that is the media, as well as the civil society organization and social activists to play their part in informing societies, exposing corruption and injustices, and supporting the public to hold their governments accountable. No wonder the online space is threatened by censorship, surveillance, trolling, threatening, disinformation, cyber attacks, you name it. These undermine the right and access to information, freedom of expression, minority and migrant rights, among a range of other human rights. Therefore, the Southern African governments and its stakeholders must come together to collaborate if they genuinely wish for public to shape their development and have a say in social, political, economic, and regional and international affairs. Towards this, UNESCO and Southern African Development Community, or SADC, have a joint plan of action for 2022 to 2025. This plan of action promotes capacity building on emerging technologies such as AI, robotics, machine learning, blockchain, and other technologies considered vital for the 4th industrial revolution. The plan of action is a shared roadmap that attunes the people in the region to the changing nature of work, the rise of digital economy, and digital skills development at all levels of education. This partnership is a step towards developing talent for Africa's AI tech system. Africa has the fastest growing population on the planet. Someone mentioned Earthlings in the beginning. They are the youngest and the largest group of Earthlings on one continent. The population is about 60%. In SADC region, though, youth unemployment stands at 12%. With right policies and enabling environment and systematic support, today's young women and men can transform the continent tomorrow. To give you a little more information about what we do in the SADC region, last year, UNESCO surveyed AI readiness, including policies and use in 9 countries in Southern Africa. In addition, UNESCO, in collaboration with the government of Namibia, organized a sub-regional forum on sustainable development-oriented and ethical use of AI. It culminated in the adoption of the Windhoek Statement on AI in Southern Africa. The statement supports coordination for the implementation of the UNESCO recommendation on ethics of AI in the Southern Africa region. UNESCO is supporting use of AI-powered lesson plan generator for teachers engaged in comprehensive sexuality education. This is an example to show how AI can be used to empower and equip teachers to create lessons that are evidence-based, age-appropriate, and culturally sensitive. We are also working with the stakeholders in Lesotho and Zimbabwe for media and information literacy policy reviews, which too will engage with the topic of the AI. Having said this, for AI to make a meaningful contribution to a national economy or African economies at large, all stakeholders need to come together in Africa. A single shared vision is critical for the creation of a conducive environment for AI research and development and for the deployment of solutions. Without this, the continent may remain a user of AI solutions that may not serve the national or regional vision for development. But this is challenging because only 40% of Africans have access to broadband today. It is a significant growth from a few years back, but compared to 87% in Europe, 95% in North America, Africa has a long way to go. Without a reliable infrastructure, affordable access to technology, and rights-based policies and digital transformation plans, AI will further aggravate the digital divide that exists in Africa. Therefore, AI development, the need for online space, and the agenda of leaving no one behind must be pursued together. Urgent attention is needed to address the digital divide due to income inequality among countries within Africa, and within the countries due to gender inequities, generational and rural-urban divides, and education and language barriers to access and use of technology. Since it is the International Day for Universal Access to Information, I would like to conclude by wishing everyone more access, more freedom, and some would say more freedom with responsibility, more inclusion, and more empowerment, and a successful conference, of course. Thank you very much for having me with you. It has been my pleasure, and I wish you the best.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nisha, for these important and scene-setting remarks. I'm delighted now to hand over to Dr. Paolini, good to see you again, Director of UNESCO Cluster Office for the Caribbean. Dr. Paolini.
Thank you very much, and great to see you again and being here. All protocol observed, but let me say and welcome the distinguished international experts, the panelists, and of course also my dear colleague from the Harare office and also from headquarters. A very warm greetings, this time from Santiago, Chile, but on behalf, of course, of the Office for the Caribbean based in Kingston. So I'm really very happy to be here once again to open this conference, which is organized by UNESCO IFAP Working Group on Information Accessibility in collaboration with the Regional Office for Southern Africa, as we have heard my dear colleague Nisha, the University of Alberta, the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica, the Center for the New Economic Diplomacy in India, and many other valuable partners and, of course, participants of different constituencies. Today, as we convene virtually, we join numerous global events in celebration of the UNESCO International Day for Universal Access. Reflecting on our last conference, I'm really struck by the incredible development of the past year. COVID-19 restrictions have lifted, allowing us to return to school, workplaces, and of course, traveling. The pandemic has accelerated digital transformation, enabling remote work, learning, leisure, and various socioeconomic activities. This transformation has continued to provide essential services across sectors. Furthermore, we have witnessed as well a remarkable advancement in artificial intelligence, with businesses and the public embracing AI in their daily lives. AI as a transition from the realm of research and technology enthusiasts to be mainstream consciousness, resulting in new job opportunities, as well empowerment for content creators and innovative services. Much credit for this leap goes to the generative AI and large language models like ChatGPT. Forbes magazine reported in February of this year that ChatGPT became the first tech application to reach 100 million unique users as its first 2 months. Additionally, a survey by Resume Builders, a company assisting job seeker, revealed that nearly half of the US businesses use ChatGPT to ask for such coding, hiring, customer service, and content creation. The survey also noted that 48% of US companies surveyed has already replaced some workers with ChatGPT. While technological disruptions may bring short-term challenges and job displacement, their long-term impact depends on how societies, businesses, and in particular individuals adapt and harness these technologies. Fostering lifelong learning, which UNESCO has been put on the forefront for decades. Supporting innovation and entrepreneurship can mitigate negative effects and, of course, help building resilience. Our paramount goal is to ensure that the benefit of this technological development are shared widely, leaving no one country, group, or individual behind. Caribbean entrepreneurs have already begun tapping into these opportunities, and we must support and promote their initiative. We also must increase awareness of ethical challenges, such as bias, data privacy, security, and the potential of loss of human agency and transparency posed by AI and other frontier technologies. Establishing ethical guardrails is essential to safeguarding human rights. The media plays a pivotal role in raising awareness of both opportunity but also challenges and risks. By facilitating informed, multi-stakeholder, public debate, we can develop frameworks that prioritize human rights. At UNESCO, we are actively involved in startup setting, awareness raising, and capacity building in an inclusive and equitable manner. In 2021, UNESCO 193 member states adopted a recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence, marking the first global framework for ethical AI use. This recommendation guides countries in maximizing artificial intelligence benefit while minimizing its risks. It aims to provide a basis for shared values, principles, and policies to govern the development of this game-changing technology so that the AI system works for the good of humanity and to prevent harm. We are collaborating with 2 Eastern Caribbean member states to implement this recommendation. Additionally, with the UN development system in the Eastern Caribbean, we are supporting the government of Antigua and Barbuda in developing its national digital transformation framework, which will be launched in June, the process we launched in June of this year. And there is also within the region a recurrent request to our office by government to really look at helping them to establish digital framework and digital policies. Across our 20 Dutch and English-speaking states, we have conducted a needs assessment survey for artificial intelligence, digital transformation, open data for small island development states. This survey has allowed us to benchmark capacities and tailor our forthcoming intervention, of course, in their specific needs, priorities, and also, context. UNESCO, in our office, is currently preparing an artificial intelligence Caribbean policy roadmap, building upon prior work, of course, with different partners like the Jamaica Broadcasting Commission. And this roadmap considers the post-COVID context, new regulatory frameworks, ethical principles, of course, the rapidity of the development of AI, and the increased interest in digital transformation strategy, as I said before, by different Caribbean countries. This initiative underscores our commitment to collaborating with our member state and our constituencies and like-minded partners to promote technologies that uphold human rights and dignity and put this at the core of the development. Such endeavors are crucial for us to build just, diverse, and in particular, inclusive and sustainable societies. Well, let me conclude by congratulate once again the IFAP Working Group for Information Accessibility for bringing together, such a group of global experts coming from different parts of the world with different experiences, talking about these critical issues, sharing their knowledge so that we can base our future work in the Caribbean as well as in the Southern African continent, but globally, on your expertise, listening to your advice, and so moving forward on this agenda. And always keeping in mind, the human dimension of artificial intelligence, which is extremely important, so that it's conducive to our life now and in future, but that respects, human rights and respects the principle of human sharing and living together. I really thank you for your attention, and I wish you a very good discussion. And once again, I'm very thankful for this collaboration and for working from different parts across the world to bring our voice more prominent on these topics. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Paolini. Dorothy Gordon, IFAP Chair, had hoped to be able to join us, but sends her apologies. However, we're delighted to introduce Dr. Oliveira, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, who is Director of the UNESCO Communications and Information Sectors Division for Digital Inclusion, Policies and Transformation. And she's also Secretary of IFAP. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Andrea. Hello, colleagues, partners, participants from around the world. It's really a pleasure to join you with both my hats as the director in charge of the area that protects our right to access to information and as secretary of the Intergovernmental Information for All program. But before I start, I want to give a shout out to the chair of the working group on information accessibility, Cordell Green, and the wonderful team of experts who are part of it for the work they do. And also I wish to start by, I want to start by wishing everyone a happy International Day for Universal Access to Information 2023. This is a day in which we celebrate protecting and promoting our right to know, a right that actually depends on us being able to remove the existing barriers to access to information. And this is the reason why this Artificial Intelligence for Information Accessibility Conference, which is already considered one of the most relevant in its field in the world, it is so important. This is a conference that highlights both the promises and the challenges of artificial intelligence in a world that is changing so fast. Speaking at this event always fills me with a lot of hope and excitement for the transformative power of artificial intelligence and how it can actually pave the way forward for us to build inclusive, equitable knowledge societies, if we actually build it to respect this human right. Our discussions today will be about how we can do it, by examining models of open data that respect privacy and other rights, by deploying AI to augment human capabilities, by adopting responsible and ethical frameworks for AI development and use. Let me highlight the diversity and inclusiveness that defines this conference. From talented high school students like Winston Ng from Singapore, our youngest speaker this time, to academia, civil society, representatives from every corner of the world, we really represent the global community and we come together as one. And within this gathering, I'm particularly heartened to witness the involvement of speakers with disabilities, passionate young people, and strong women leaders who lend their voices and insights to our conversation. We come together to affirm our belief that the path to understanding AI and ensuring its benefits reach everyone is through collective discourse and collaboration. The UNESCO Information for All program, which is an intergovernmental program that serves as a platform for member states and stakeholders to join efforts that confronting information access challenges from both digital and non-digital realms, IFAP aims to ensure that information is available and benefits all of us equally. The program operates within its 6 priority areas: information for development, information literacy, information preservation, information ethics, multilingualism in cyberspace, and in the thematic area of our conference, information accessibility. We build upon this foundation, and I'm grateful to IFAP member states for their insightful, substantive contributions that were reflected in the new IFAP Strategic Plan 2023-2029. This plan outlines IFAP's objectives and actions for the next 6 years and was adopted by the IFAP Council during its 12th session in the past June. The document recognizes the transformative potential of AI to accelerate sustainable development, while also emphasizing the need for robust normative frameworks that protect human rights and human dignity. It includes among the 6 IFAP program's objectives actions to set policy standards that strengthen universal accessibility to information for everyone. If you haven't yet had the opportunity, I please welcome you to explore IFAP's strategic plan, which is available in the UNESCO Digital Library. Just search for it. Transitioning from strategy to action, I'd like to highlight a recent project undertaken by the IFAP Working Group on Information Accessibility, which involves a community radio station in Jamaica, Abang 88.7 FM. This is a fantastic radio station, carries out a mission to preserve and share the history and the knowledge of the Maroon community. In a span of just 3 months, it crafted a sustainability plan, expanded its global reach to a newly designed website, and organized a 3-day workshop for the youth of the Apokong community, training them in skills ranging from interviewing techniques to digital editing. The project resonates with IFAP's essence of community-driven progress. And so I want to congratulate the entire team for ensuring accessibility of the radio station's precious archives and achieving this particular milestone. I'd like to also draw attention to the messages sent by Erica Simons and Dr. Paul Hector on the Caribbean AI Roadmap. This is an initiative, a first for the small island developing states, that stands as a shining example of the potential that we can unleash when we work together. Facilitated by a partnership between the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica and the UNESCO Cluster Office for the Caribbean, this initiative showcases how collaborative efforts can lead the way in harnessing AI for accessible information and knowledge for all. I call upon all stakeholders present here today, from academia to civil society, from private sector to government, technical community, all of us, to actively participate in and contribute to IFAP through the work carried out by its expert working groups, national committees, and its projects, so that together we can shape a world where AI not only advances technologically, but most importantly, it becomes a tool for humanity's advancement. So thank you all, and I wish you all a successful and enlightening conference and a wonderful International Day for Universal Access to Information. Thank you. You're mute, Andrea. You're mute. Andrea, you're mute. Oh.
Sorry, Andrea, you're muted.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So it's my pleasure to move straight on to the keynote address by Senator Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon, who's a minister without portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister in Jamaica. And thank you very much, Dr. Oliveira.
Ladies and gentlemen, at home and abroad, greetings. Artificial intelligence is undeniably reshaping the contours of our societies, bringing forth both unparalleled opportunities and complex challenges, from enhancing freedom of expression to redefining accessibility for the differently abled. AI is weaving new narratives of empowerment. Yet, as with any profound technological advancement, it also surfaces concerns of misinformation, manipulation, and the overarching need for regulation. Before diving deeper into these dynamics, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to UNESCO for extending this invitation and for consistently being at the forefront of global dialogues on such crucial subjects. Today, as we delve into the intricate dance between freedom of expression, information accessibility, and AI, we will also explore the pros and cons of an international approach to regulating this transformative technology. In this discourse, the emphasis is on understanding AI's multifaceted impact on society and the potential paths forward, as guided by institutions like UNESCO. Freedom of expression is a cornerstone of democracy, playing a pivotal role in fostering an informed and engaged citizenry. In democratic societies, the open exchange of ideas, opinions, and information enables individuals to participate actively in public discourse, make informed decisions, and hold those in power accountable. When citizens have the freedom to express their thoughts without fear of censorship or reprisal, it cultivates an environment of diversity, tolerance, and inclusivity. This in turn strengthens the democratic process by allowing different perspectives to be heard and considered, leading to well-rounded policies and decisions that reflect the interests and needs of the populace. Through the protection of freedom of expression, democracies not only ensure the right to speak one's mind, but also empowers citizens to shape the direction of their societies. Moreover, the nexus between freedom of expression and economic prosperity is closely intertwined. In societies where individuals are free to express their ideas and innovate, there emerges a fertile ground for creativity and entrepreneurship to flourish. Open discussions, debates, and the exchange of ideas stimulate intellectual growth, leading to the development of new technologies, products, and services. An environment that nurtures free expression also encourages critical thinking and constructive criticism, enabling businesses and governments to identify and rectify inefficiencies or shortcomings. This dynamic atmosphere attracts investment, both domestic and foreign, as investors are more likely to commit resources to economies that encourage the exploration of new concepts and ideas. Thus, the relationship between freedom of expression and economic prosperity is symbiotic, with the former catalyzing innovation and the latter providing the resources necessary for sustained development. The concept of freedom of expression lies at the very core of democratic societies and prosperous economies. It is a cornerstone of our values, allowing ideas to flourish and diverse voices to be heard. Yet as we embrace AI's power to disseminate information, concerns arise about misinformation and manipulation. Striking the right balance between upholding freedom of expression and curbing harmful content is a challenge we must navigate. AI presents both dangers and benefits to freedom of expression. On one hand, AI-powered content moderation can lead to censorship concerns. Automated systems might inadvertently suppress legitimate speech or opinions that don't conform to their programmed guidelines, limiting the diversity of voices in public discourse. The risk lies in the potential for overzealous filtering, constraining the open exchange of ideas and stifling creativity. Furthermore, governments and corporations could exploit AI to amplify their control over information flows, potentially using it to manipulate public narratives or curtail dissent. The opposite may also become a problem. With deep fakes and chatbots, bad actors can now generate harmful content at a fraction of the time it would take them a few short years ago. This content can then be injected into the public domain to pervert legitimate conversation. Conversely, AI can also enhance freedom of expression. AI-driven platforms enable efficient content distribution and discovery, allowing marginalized voices to reach wider audiences. Translation tools can break down language barriers, fostering cross-cultural understanding and enabling global conversations. Moreover, AI-powered algorithms can tailor content recommendations to individual preferences, broadening exposure to diverse viewpoints and encouraging exploration of differing perspectives. While challenges remain, strategic AI implementation can facilitate a richer and more inclusive exchange of ideas, promoting a healthier information ecosystem. Now let us turn our attention to the remarkable strides AI has made in transforming the lives of individuals with disabilities. AI-driven assistive technologies hold the potential to level the playing field, breaking down barriers that have hindered full participation in society. Imagine a world where those with visual impairments can navigate their surroundings with ease, where individuals with speech impediments can communicate effortlessly, and where those with mobility challenges can access education and employment opportunities without hindrance. AI's capabilities are offering us these very possibilities. Through advancements in natural language processing and computer vision, AI is enabling real-time language translation, making information accessible to all, regardless of language barriers or the ability to hear. Similarly, AI-powered prosthetics and mobility devices are restoring independence and mobility to those who are previously constrained. AI is also revolutionizing communication for those with speech or motor disabilities. Individuals with conditions like ALS who might previously have been unable to communicate can now use AI-driven interfaces to convert eye movements or minute muscle twitches into speech or text. The adoption of AI technologies in education is also revolutionizing learning for students with various disabilities. Personalized learning platforms equipped with AI can adapt to each student's unique learning style, ensuring that every individual has the opportunity to thrive. UNESCO's commitment to promoting inclusive education aligns seamlessly with the potential of AI to provide personalized and accessible learning experiences. By investing in research, innovation, and partnerships, UNESCO can amplify the impact of AI in enhancing accessibility and inclusivity, leaving no one behind. Artificial intelligence will affect every society across the globe, directly or indirectly. Each country, with its unique culture, history, and needs, will respond in different ways. Nonetheless, I am of the belief that an international response is needed to set the baseline of what is and is not permitted. A multinational response to regulating AI holds several compelling advantages. First and foremost, the global nature of AI's impact necessitates a coordinated approach. AI technologies transcend geographical boundaries, making it essential to establish common standards and norms that ensure consistency and interoperability. Any international response can harmonize regulations, fostering a predictable environment for businesses to operate and innovate while preventing regulatory arbitrage. Secondly, regulatory arbitrage poses significant dangers by allowing entities to exploit regulatory gaps or discrepancies between different jurisdictions, potentially leading to unfair advantages and reduced accountability. This practice can foster a race to the bottom in terms of regulatory standards, undermining legal protections and standards. Ultimately, regulatory arbitrage in artificial intelligence can hinder effective governance and create an environment where developers prioritize circumventing regulations over ethical conduct. With an international approach to regulation, we can remove the incentive of regulatory arbitrage. Lastly, international cooperation in AI regulation can facilitate technology transfer and capacity building. Many countries, particularly those with limited resources, might struggle to develop comprehensive regulatory frameworks independently. Jamaica is one of these countries. Despite the gains made, we still have a long way to go in reducing the delays in the legislative process. Even if we have the necessary legal personnel, we will still need the necessary technical personnel with the knowledge and experience to give context to the legislative process. A collective effort can lead to knowledge sharing, assistance programs, and capacity building initiatives, ensuring that the benefits of AI are accessible to a broader spectrum of nations, ultimately reducing the global technology divide. In this context, UNESCO plays a pivotal role in setting international standards for AI governance, ensuring that the technology respects human rights and values. By fostering collaboration among governments, especially small ones like Jamaica, industry, and civil society, we can collectively establish guidelines that safeguard both the freedom of expression and the quality of information. There are challenges associated with pursuing an international response to regulating artificial intelligence. Bypassing the issue of effectiveness being that an international response heavily relies on the willingness of each nation to comply and enforce agreed upon regulations, other issues exist. One key concern is the potential for slow decision-making and bureaucratic hurdles. Negotiating and reaching consensus among diverse nations with varying interests, priorities, and regulatory cultures can be a time-consuming process. In the rapidly evolving landscape of AI, such delays could hinder innovation and responsiveness to emerging challenges. Moreover, an international framework might struggle to accommodate the nuances of each country's legal and ethical landscape. Attempts to harmonize regulations or set a multinational baseline could lead to compromises that do not fully align with a nation's specific needs or cultural contexts. This could result in diluted regulations that fail to adequately address pressing issues related to AI, potentially undermining the intended goal of safeguarding human rights and societal values. While an international response to regulating AI offers several benefits, it also presents challenges that must be carefully considered. Striking a balance between harmonized regulations and respecting national sovereignty, Addressing diverse ethical perspectives and ensuring timely decision-making is paramount. As the global AI landscape continues to evolve, finding the right equilibrium between international cooperation and tailored local approaches will be key to realizing the full potential of AI while safeguarding our values and rights. In conclusion, the governance of AI is an endeavor that requires careful consideration, collaboration, and innovation. The tensions between freedom of expression and information accessibility must be managed with wisdom, respecting the fundamental principles of democracy while safeguarding against harm. At the same time, AI's potential to overcome disabilities and deliver access is a beacon of hope that calls upon us to prioritize inclusion and equity in our technological advancements. I'm happy to say that in Jamaica, we have formed an AI task force that is comprised of persons in the private sector, the public sector, and academia. Their remit is to explore the advantages and disadvantages of AI in Jamaica. There are many ways that AI will transform sectors here. We're looking at AI in areas from farming to education. The task force is also looking to examine the ways in which we may need to change our existing laws to especially deal with the negative aspects relating to AI, especially in its use as a tool of misinformation and disinformation. As members of UNESCO, we stand at the forefront of shaping the future of AI governance. Let us be guided by the optimistic belief that through responsible stewardship, we can unlock the immense potential of AI for the betterment of humanity. By fostering international cooperation, setting ethical standards, and encouraging innovation, we can ensure that the promises of AI are realized while upholding the values that define our societies. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you very much for that excellent exposition of the issues to be addressed. It now falls to me to introduce a panel of experts who come from a very diverse set of backgrounds, and they will discuss how AI may be developed in a way that respects the rights of all individuals, looking at the benefits of AI in key areas such as medicine and civic participation. We will also explore how AI can act as a bridge to reduce potential divides and create platforms that offer universal access to information. The bios of all the panelists are on the speakers' pages, so without further ado, I'm delighted to introduce Professor Sonia Livingston, who is Professor of Social Psychology at the LSE and founder of many projects, including the groundbreaking International Kids Online Network. Over to you, Professor Livingston.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, and a pleasure to be here and to join this panel. So I'm going to say something about children and children's rights in the context of AI for information accessibility. And I'll start by observing that it is only children in international human rights treaties who have an explicit right to information. It's Article 17 in the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. And we might ask, why do children have this right? Why is it especially singled out? Perhaps because it's not so obvious to adults, who often think about technology in relation to children in ways that are in some ways protective fairly, but overprotective. And so the importance of emphasizing children's right to information, access to technology, civil rights and liberties is really crucial. Today we're talking about artificial intelligence. Very recently we were talking about the metaverse. Before that, perhaps algorithms, data. It seems that there's wave after wave of innovation that in many ways creates fantastic new opportunities for children and lots of excitement, but also each new wave creates a kind of media panic that leads us to highlight the risks over the opportunities. And we could say it always has done through the history of technology. For children's organisations and those who advocate for their welfare and rights, each innovation also requires new research, a new effort to understand the technology and to offer advice, and that can overwhelm the capacity of those organisations to make sure that they have a voice at the table and that they also provide a route to bring children to that table, because children have the right to be heard according to the convention. So the result, I'm sure others will recognise, is that we can all feel we are rushing to catch up and to reach for solutions that can be too simple. So to give an example, when ChatGPT suddenly emerged as a global phenomenon just a few months ago, almost the first thing that happened is that schools banned it. Before we could discover and ask ourselves what are really the educational opportunities here, what are the information opportunities, what new kinds of access does ChatGPT offer to children, we banned it because the risks are also salient and the fear of discrimination and problems. When UNESCO's very impressive Global Education Monitoring Report was released just a few weeks ago, mapping how education is developing around the world, where the opportunities are and how technology can help, the headlines in many countries, certainly in mine, were UNESCO says ban mobile phones in school. It was an extraordinary translation of a balanced judgment of the opportunities and the risks turned into something that is simplistic and negative. And I suggest as a starting point, we shouldn't be banning anything, least of all powerful information resources that can really benefit children. Whether they benefit children, however, is something I think we need a skeptical approach to. There's a lot of hyperbole about how AI is going to transform everything. It's truly hard, I say as a researcher, it's truly hard to find the evidence that artificial intelligence is really benefiting children, really providing personalized learning or access to better information. And indeed, some of those questions about who determines what's good information are also especially difficult in relation to children. So AI, we can see, is powering disinformation. It's met by educational agendas that very often, too often, teach to the test rather than teach in ways that promote children's critical literacy, and not often enough teach in ways that empower children's curiosity and intrinsic desire to learn. We almost fear letting children, enabling children to go and explore the internet because we know the many risks that it leads to. Meanwhile, children's lives are increasingly platformed. Their school life is mediated by, in many countries, by one or more major platforms. I won't name them, but we know them, which are full of artificial intelligence in ways that is not transparent, not clear, or based on a good educational judgment or informational judgment, and which takes children's data for profit in ways that are done without informed consent or remedy. I want to make two more points in my short opening remarks. One is AI is today's latest technology, potentially transformative, but we haven't solved the problems of yesterday's technology yet. We still haven't solved the risks of social media, of even web access. We haven't solved the missed and unequal opportunities, especially in the global south. So we're always being led by what's new, but the many problems the risks aren't solved. And over and again, as technology arrives, it seems to perpetuate more inequalities than it does really to promote fair access. The last thing I wanted to say is really coming from a child rights perspective and thinking of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child especially, which is the world's most widely ratified international human rights treaty. I wanted to mention General Comment 25, which is the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child's way of explaining how children's rights apply in digital contexts, recognizing that the digital is a moving target, but recognizing also that children's rights are fundamental within a digital world. And that means thinking about rights in ways that are holistic, that are age appropriate to respect children's evolving capacities, that are differentiated and inclusive, because children's rights are as different from each other. Children's lives are as different from each other as our adults' lives. And thinking about rights in ways which are accountable and responsive. And that's quite a challenge in relation to big tech and the data and technological infrastructure that now mediates information and access. So in my work in the Digital Futures Commission, we have been trying to think how to embed child rights by design so that children's rights are really taken into account at the start of a process of product development of digital services and products. And I think there is enormous potential to do more of this kind of work. I know many are working on privacy by design, on safety by design, but child rights by design offers us that holistic vision. I think it will have synergies with others on this panel who are thinking and advocating from a range of different perspectives, sometimes minority groups, but significant perspectives. So I'm very curious to see how our panel unfolds in terms of finding those synergies. But it's a very genuine task before us to really articulate what are the evidence-based opportunities and risks, and how can we embed a rights-based process within the design and development and policy of artificial intelligence and whatever is tomorrow's innovation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sonia. I'm going to move straight on because you've raised a number of questions, but as you say, some of them will be covered and we can have a discussion, I hope, subsequently when we have all our views. Some of them will be covered in subsequent panelists. So I'd like to move now to Professor Jacob Jaremko, who is not only a chair of the Canadian Institute of Advanced Research looking at AI, but also Associate Professor in Radiology at the University of Alberta. The chair's yours.
Great. Thank you very much for having me. This is a very exciting event. So I'm a physician. I'm a radiologist. I'm a physician who looks at whose practice is to deal with medical imaging, and so I can bring a perspective on in terms of access to information and AI for information accessibility. I can bring a perspective from the medical field. So I quite liked how Sonia said that the media panic generally highlights risk over opportunity, and that's true in medical AI as well. So I just want to sort of start by highlighting the opportunity. So worldwide, I'm a radiologist. I'm trained for many years in the specialty to look at medical images like CT, X-ray, and ultrasound and make diagnoses inside the body. Most of the world, if we have a sort of a broad perspective, most of the developing world has very little access to people like me who've been trained to look at those pictures. So even if you could make your way to a facility like a hospital, like a tertiary hospital, and get a scan with a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment, you might not even have people there who are trained to look at the pictures right. So it's, broadly speaking, the wealthy in every nation are going to have access to the top medical imaging, but there are many, many people in the world, billions of people, who wouldn't have access to the medical imaging that one might even say they kind of have a right to have. So I think an opportunity of artificial intelligence is really to increase equity and provide more equitable care. So, for example, my personal work is on using handheld portable ultrasound devices, which can be taken into the field and perform scans of patients. And we use artificial intelligence that's trained by computers that have seen thousands of scans and seen the gold standard labels from expert radiologists and other physicians. So basically, what we're able to do is increase the ability to get the expert knowledge out into the field at the point of care. So this is something that without AI, just having the ultrasound probe, people won't necessarily know what to do and how to take the scan. But if you have the AI helping, then you can perform these scans with not too much training. So this really is a tremendous opportunity, offering the world, people like children all over the world, a chance for better medical care. So I'm very excited about that opportunity, and I think it's one of the examples of how AI can really help children. So there are, of course, issues with this. One key issue is the issue of balanced data sets. So if we are training AI algorithms, then we need to be using data from patients that represent demographically the societies that they're going to be used in. So, for example, we shouldn't be training. It's just a lot of the initial work comes from places like California, or American centers, and it might be trained primarily on white people. So there's not a lot of representation of other communities. And or it might be trained on primarily wealthy people who could afford private healthcare systems. We need to consider the equity of access to data for training the AI systems. So ideally, then one might say, well, everyone's medical data should be used to train these AI systems. But then we have to consider also data privacy. So, medical imaging data is very personal. Pictures inside the human body, inside your own body, are very personal and may reveal stuff about you that you might not want other people to know. And if you're a child, you can't consent properly to the release of this information. So who is consenting on your behalf? Well, parents and guardians, but are they even given the opportunity to consent? Is it realistic if you're using millions of data points from data that's been collected over the last 20 years to go and ask people for consent retrospectively? Probably not. So who's in charge of keeping that data private, or respecting the fact that this data, if it's going to be released, is for something good? And then a third issue, of course, is liability. So once these medical imaging AI systems are unleashed upon the world, they're going to make some mistakes. And so who's responsible for those mistakes? And to what extent is the AI developer responsible versus the people using the tool? So there are many sort of ethical concerns that are raised and need to be considered carefully when implementing AI. But I'd like to emphasize that the AI does provide that making medical information from children available to the AI systems does produce a huge potential opportunity in equity and in improving medical care all around the world. So I think if it's done right, it can be a huge benefit. And so I just bring a medical perspective, and I welcome the further discussions in this panel.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Professor Jaremko. And what you've talked about, of course, is very much the issues of consent, the issues that Sonia has raised about by design, and thinking of other groups of people. I'd like to continue the conversation, particularly around increasing equity and reducing and removing divides, and invite Professor Ashok Jujunwala from the Institute of Technology to speak now, to talk about how he is using AI to break down barriers to entry and access to information. Professor, the floor is yours.
Yes, can you hear me first of all?
We can.
Okay, I'm also sharing screen. Just wanted to make sure that you are able to see my screen. Can you see that screen, please?
Yes, I can.
Okay, fine. I'm going to make a short presentation specifically with reference to India, and how while AI is a very mixed blessing, there are a lot of very positive things that can be done and is being done. There are also many negative things. I'm going to talk about one positive thing that we feel will be important for a country like ours. Most of you know that India is today 1.4 billion population, very, very large, the largest population in the world. I do not know how many of you know that we have 22 official languages in the country. And I've shown here the different languages. And there are many, many minor languages. In fact, if I include minor languages, it will be many, many more. And the languages are so different that I come from a place called Bengal. I'm showing it here. And now I live in Tamil Nadu. I don't understand Tamil Nadu, and a person from Tamil Nadu will not understand Bengali. In fact, maybe somewhat one may be able to understand a little bit in the neighboring states, but otherwise one will not be able to understand. Of course, Hindi is understood by a large percentage of people, but yet it is still a country in terms of very, very divided. So what do people communicate? Those who are highly educated communicate in English. But the number of people who know English are only 5 to 6%. So the upper section, the richer people, people who are access to all kind of resources, are the ones who are becoming intermediaries understanding English. And particularly with 65% in rural India, most people don't understand English. And India, in that sense, is a very difficult and divided country. Now, this is the problem has been existing, and we have been tried. There has been an attempt to say, let Hindi become the national language, and there is a huge opposition from many, many states which just can't relate to Hindi and vice versa. Now, with the help of artificial intelligence, suddenly we seem to be solving that. There is something that we have come up with, something that we worked for a long time, but only last 3 to 4 years with the artificial intelligence getting the strength, we are able to actually do that. This is a program called Bhashini. What we are able to do is we were able to do text to speech and speech to text in every language. And we also were able to do translation. And this will enable Indians to have easy access to internet and digital services in their own languages. And it aims to build the national public digital platform with contributions from everybody. So today, for example, we already have something, and which I will demonstrate to you, where I can speak in one language. My speech is then converted to text in that language. Then that text is then translated, let's say in English, could be another language also, but from text to text translated to English. And in fact, this is something which will give you question and answer. I'll ask the question in my own language, and let's say in Tamil or Hindi, and it then gets translated to English. And from the English, then it will go search the web, find the right answer, get a response in English. And once you get a response in English, it's again translated to the language that I wish to hear the answer in. Let's say Hindi. And I will get, again, the text to speech will enable me to hear the answer in Hindi. So I can speak to the computers in my language and get what I want. I'm going to demonstrate that. Just bear with me. Very short demonstration. And if you do not hear the sound, please let me know. So this is something where I'm choosing the source language to be Hindi, and the destination language is Tamil. How many? So the question was asked in Hindi, Bharat mein kitne rajya hai? And it translated into English. And now I'm going to demonstrate from Tamil to Telugu. And again, I'll ask a question. The question was about the Chandrayaan-3, something that recently So what I did is ask question in English about Chandrayaan, in Tamil. It translated to English, found the answer in English, and now after that, it was able to get the answer, and I was able to actually then do this. I hope you have been able to see the demo. I'm not sure you did, but in case you could not see the demo, I apologize. We are actually already.
May I
Yes.
ask, perhaps at the end we can put the video up on the chat screen so that people can download it if they want to, if that's possible.
Yeah, I'll have to convert it into a link and do that.
Yes,
I
that
can
would
do
be
that
super.
later on,
you.
not immediately. So
Thank you.
here, the power of AI, basically now what I'm doing is I am talking in one language or somebody is talking in one language. It is converting to speech. It translates to the language that I want to listen to. And it gives me the same question. Aap kaise hai? It asks me in English, how are you? And vice versa. This is something that we are already doing. We are going one step further. We are taking for people with disability. This is a person who is a deaf and hard of hearing. So he in fact types the question, hello Raji. And this gets converted to speech. And I am not a deaf person. This person is not a deaf person. So he hears, hello Raji. And she answers, hey Srini. And when she answers on the mobile phone of the person who is hard of hearing, you get the words, hey Srini. So these are the kind of things we are able to now already do across language. And this is the kind of thing, just a small demo I wanted to give, that what we are able to already do. And just wanted to continue this, and pretty much that's what my presentation is about. And we are able to, so let me stop sharing. I'm sorry, I thought I already stopped sharing. And I think that's all my presentation, and I'm then ready for question and answer. Thank you very much.
That was excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Indeed, we did.
Were you able to hear the video? Were you able to hear the video?
I only heard parts of it. I don't know if any others did, but we can come back to that. And as I said, if you can, at some stage, let me have the things and I can send the links on to colleagues. To round off this panel of experts, I'd like to continue with the conversation about equity and introduce Cheyenne Reid, Culture Business Partner at CREA. And Cheyenne, I think you're going to talk about how technologies can empower individuals and offer a vision for a more inclusive future. Over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. As I was thinking about AI, and especially from my perspective as a person that has a physical disability, a lot of what I think about is how I've grown up and now in a capacity where I need to be employed. So I come at it from an employment perspective as well as a daily life perspective. So top of mind for me as I think about AIs and how it integrates, I think about people like me with physical disabilities that might have been screened out of employment because of the fact that typing, for example, I was born without fingers. So typing for me, I have figured out my way around that. So I don't need assistive devices to type. However, with everything that has now come on stream that AI has facilitated, it does make it a lot easier. So from that perspective, I can see how people with disability, physical disability, and other learning disabilities can now tap into the workforce. So something as context. I appreciated that presentation just now by Professor Ashok in terms of how text-to-speech is working. A lot of it also, I believe, has to do with the understanding the tonation of things like that. So sending an email, somebody that probably is neurodivergent gets an email that they're not able to perceive the tones and so on in the email and might react to it negatively. With AI, that the possibility is now likely for you to use different apps to say, okay, help you to understand the tone and also help you to craft a response. So recently, my organization, we have LinkedIn Learning that we use from a recruiter lens. They now have within that LinkedIn Recruiter Suite a way to easily send messages out to different candidates that I am reaching out to. The messages are quicker, so this means I don't have to spend a long time typing out these messages. So my typing speed now is not something that is insecurity for me anymore, because early career, when I was looking for a job as young Shay, a lot of it was I applied to a call center, and typing speed was one of those characteristics that needed to be checked off, when in actuality, when you do get the job, a lot of people have templates that they use. So it's a simple copy and paste. So that requirement for having a typing speed of X, Y, and Z, it's a nice to have, but at the same time, as people get into jobs, they get familiarized with things, they make their different ways of doing it. So with the advancement with AIs, especially I've seen it with my own Google platform. When I'm typing something, it allows me to help to finish the sentences. And that for me, it's able to sense the tone of the message that I'm trying to send, and it provides me with assistance with filling out the rest of the sentence that I am describing and so on. And I think that is going leaps and bounds with helping people like me, as well as others with other learning disabilities or anything of that sort. ChatGPT has come on stream, and there's been so much backlash from an academic perspective, where I can appreciate, because I am also a student. I've used ChatGPT myself in terms of it. For me, there's a lot of research that goes into it, I would say. Now, the references that they provide, not always factual, and that's on you to do a year of fact checking and so on. So I appreciate that there needs to be some sort of guidelines or guideposts in using it. But at the same time, if somebody has no knowledge of how to do a search, or it's just too taxing to go on to Google and search a bunch of different places, in putting a question there, how I use it is to kind of give me a guideline, kind of give me like a skeleton of what the question is asking. So for somebody who is not able to interpret things as regular persons would, I find that helpful from that perspective, to kind of take that one step further to be able to understand and interpret and understand tones. As I was researching this as well, I don't drive currently. I don't use prosthetic arms. When I started out my journey, prosthetic arms did not make sense for me. They were not useful. They were not able to help pick up things and anything of the sort. Fast forward to now, I am older. I see prosthetic arms that have way more dexterity, that can pick up fine objects, pens and tools and little things like that. And I'm amazed to see where it has come from and where it will go in terms of helping me with possibly driving at some point in my life, because of that added security that I will be able to have with that. And other AI-powered cars, self-driving cars, the jury's still out on that in terms of safety from my perspective, but I do see it as a good advancement, especially for younger kids coming up like me with disabilities, physical disabilities, to see that the world is still accessible for you, because these tools are being created so that to help you to access these things and to live, I hate to use the word normal, but to lead a life that is sustainable, a life that is inclusive, and a life that does not allow you to feel othered in the grand scheme of things with colleagues and so on, and progressing to different milestones as well as we age. So.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much indeed, Shay. And all the presentations have actually talked about the benefits and opportunities offered by AI, by technology, indeed, and what Shay has demonstrated is very, very recent personal benefits that have come. And of course, it does raise some of the questions. I'm an ex-regulator. It does raise some of the questions that we have been asking about informed consent, and also about verifiability of data. How do you know, and I think Professor Jaremko talked about that as well, how do you know that the data you are training the material on is not in some way biased? And I don't know if that is something that you can each address, or you may feel that's not an area to address and just have an observation, because I think consent we might talk about by design in this, consent is one issue, but how do you actually verify your data sets? And maybe we can each have a view on that, even if you aren't actually working in that particular area. May I start with you, Sonia, just briefly? So it's a two-part question, verifiability and consent.
So I appreciate, I think consent is super difficult, and I appreciated Professor Jurenko's balance between questions of consent and questions of public benefit. And yes, we need to keep these in mind. It's very hard to make rules for the world and rules for all populations. So I might cop out a little at this point and suggest, could we think more about the consultative processes by which we generate the kind of guidelines around consent? And can we think of ways also of containing the ways in which different guidelines or different principles would work for particular domains or particular populations? I mean, just to pick up, there's been a kind of a theme around health and access and inclusion so far in the panel, which in many ways for me is at odds with what I'm seeing in the domain of education, where there's a lot of profit being made and very little effort at consent. I think there's more sensitivity around consent in the domain of health. So I don't know that I can answer the question, but I can see the kinds of issues that we should be having on the table, and I have a definite resistance to trying to say something grand that can include all populations for all domains.
And I think that raises a very important question, which we probably can't get onto today, which is how do you actually come into those areas? And Shay touched on that when she was talking about some of the particular areas. Professor Jhunjhunwala, do you have a view? Can you talk about how verifiability of data particularly?
Yeah, I actually only talked about a particular positive aspect of AI. How do I positively use it? But today, at least in my country, it is very, very heavily used to spread false messages. It is used all the time for fake news, trying to polarize people, so it is actually being used today. Now, it is not just the AI, but the whole internet is being used for that. I mean, when we started trying to build internet and connect everyone to it, we had thought that this will empower people. In some sense, it has, but the amount of fake news and falsity that is being spread about with internet is just immense. What has happened with AI is now that this fake news is created and it appears as if it is true. It is becoming worse. Earlier, you could only do it with text and write words. Now you can even show my face as if I'm speaking something which is totally different from what I really spoke. So in that sense, we are in a very, very serious problem. The problem is because the way this world is getting divided nowadays, the way within the nation societies are getting divided, that there is the way the politics is moving, at least I see it in India, I'm seeing it in the United States also, to the extent that I know of. This fake news is becoming so common and AI is being increasingly used. So at this stage, frankly speaking, how do you verify? What do you do? It's a very, very tough challenge. You can do it at an individual level. If I am using something, I can try to find ways to validate. But the way the tools are being used, I'll say it is used and misused like anything, abused like anything. So, very unfortunate, but that's the current state.
That's certainly something I'm sure we will try and come. Sorry, go on.
One last word. Unfortunately, I have found that even governments are using. So that's the bad part. And who are the regulator? Who will do the regulation? If governments itself is trying to start try to promote fake news. So that's my answer. Thank you.
I'm sure we might come back to that. Jake Durenko, do you have a view? I mean, verifiability of data, you actually touched on that in the conversation. You also touched on informed consent, particularly in terms of children.
Yeah, so you know, verifiability of data in terms of like, it's very important to find some way to validate that your algorithm, that I guess it's an outcomes based, from my view of it, from the medical side, that's an outcomes based approach to verifying that data is appropriately being used. Like, it has to get the right answer in the right populations. So it requires really extensive testing and study to see if the data is functioning appropriately. You have to do pilot studies, implementation studies, and make sure that you know, because there is no perfect external gold standard on a lot of these things. So you know, basically it requires really testing in all the populations that you want to use your data in. So it's, I don't know, it's kind of different in the medical field a little bit, but
yeah, I mean, you talked about the differences. You talked about algorithmic bias, for example, and the biases that are set in, and there are the issues around privacy that we might come back to, I think, if we have the time, as well as consent, and they're slightly different perhaps, and maybe I'll come back to those, because privacy actually is an area, Shay, that I've been asked to ask you about. And are you concerned about your privacy when you are so much online and so much using different aspects? Has that ever been a concern for you?
I can see it as a concern, like immediate thought, no, from what I can think of in terms of my immediate interactions. It was something that was raised at my job, though, from the IT perspective, in terms of, say, for instance, somebody were to copy and paste an email to just understand the tone better or to research a question. There's the issue of putting product information out there that was not meant to be out there and not knowing where it goes. So I can understand it from that perspective. So yes, there is a concern, but as with everything and using the internet, I think we have to be guided by just be mindful, because the internet is good and it's bad, similar to how AI can be good and can be bad. So as everybody was sharing, the thought comes to mind about some sort of a review board, having diverse perspective on these review boards that are interfacing with AIs, can provide one help with seeing it from a person with a physical disability standpoint. Yes, this is a good part that I can benefit from it, but having somebody else who is, okay, doesn't have a disability, but is looking at it from a different perspective, similar to how each of us here are coming from this from all different angles, having a panel or a board of that sort just to review, to say, okay, here is where I find it great, here is where I see potential for some misuse or whatnot, and then to have a conversation to say, okay, how can we counter that based on how each of us are seeing it as useful and how each of us could be disadvantaged by it. To just have that conversation and get that going could potentially be helpful in reducing some of these negative side that it does come with.
So, provocative to end the panel, is it going to be possible to have that sort of consensus? Can be a simple yes, no answer, because this is a debate that will rage and has been raging for years now. Shay, I'll start with you as you're on my screen.
I don't say it's impossible. I have a disability. I don't see anything as impossible. I just feel like there is ways around it. It might not be easy for sure, but it doesn't have to start grand with a very big board or anything. It's just a matter of maybe users who have come together, similar to how we are all from different walks of life, but have different different knowledge about it from each of our perspectives. So conversations like these can help us to start to ask the right questions from the right groups of people in order to kind of pull together a way forward.
Super, that's a very diplomatic and right answer. Well done. Professor Junjunwala, a yes or no, or a simple elaboration?
Yeah, just I agree completely with Shay.
Fantastic.
Nothing more.
Excellent. Jacob.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think that I just want to add that to achieve some kind of consensus requires sort of a common understanding to some degree. Like people have to have some knowledge of how an AI system works and how all the stakeholders have to have some kind of common frame of reference for there to be a consensus. So.
And last but not least, Professor Livingston.
Well, I absolutely agree. I mean, it must be said the world doesn't agree on anything. So the prospect of, a lovely group that comes together and sorts it out for AI is implausible, though there has been an astonishing consensus around child rights. So maybe that's one way into building a consensus, but in a way, I think the key issue is where is the power, and how do we get to those who are building the systems, and then also what can we do about those who are implementing. So maybe rather than the one group to control everything, which will be incredibly political, we need to also work out a map to distribute the responsibilities so that local organizations and local sectors and so forth can also have some power to make their own decisions.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you all very much. We've managed to close on time, so I'm very grateful to all the panelists. Yes, Professor, you wish to say something?
Yeah, I've just put the links,
Video.
both on the video as well as the presentation, on the chat window. So in case people want to see.
And indeed, the opening session it has been recorded, so that will also be available. Thank you all very much. Thank you to the panelists. Before I hand you over to the chair of the planning committee, Samriddhi Arora, I'd like to say the conversations continue on GatherTown, and there are some excellent presentations talking about limitations, talking about positives, talking about governance, a whole variety of areas that you would hope from such an expert panel of people. Thank you very much to everybody, and I hand over now to Samriddhi.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Andrea. Ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to join us in GatherTown to view presentations from more than 50 expert speakers from across the globe, together with the live salon discussions. The GatherTown platform allows you to visit the pavilion of your choice and view the videos by pressing the X button on your keyboard. A link to the GatherTown platform is available in the chat. Please allow me to convey extreme gratitude to the eminent speaker in this opening session, Cordell Green, Executive Director of the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica, Deputy Chair of IFAP, and Chair of UNESCO IFAP Working Group on Information Accessibility. Dr. Anna Paulini, Director, UNESCO Cluster Office for the Caribbean, Ms. Nisha, Officer in Charge, UNESCO Regional Office for Southern Africa, Dr. Marilza Oliveira, Director of the UNESCO Communication and Information Sectors Division for Digital Inclusion, Policies and Transformation, and Secretary of the Intergovernmental UNESCO Information for All Program. Senator, the Honorable Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon, Minister without portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister, with oversight for skills and digital transformation, Jamaica. The eminent speakers who participated in the panel discussion, and Andrea Melwood Hargrave for doing an excellent job as MC and moderator. Thank you as well to our technical support team and volunteers, especially Janine Sale and the team at Marketing Plus, Sasha Harrison, and the team at Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica, and Dr. Nicholas Arnes of the University of Alberta. I would also like to thank our partners, the Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute, University of Alberta, ORF India, the Center for New Economic Diplomacy, the UNESCO Cluster Office for the Caribbean, UNESCO Regional Office for Southern Africa, and the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica. Last but not least, a very special thank you to members of AI4IA Planning Committee, which I had the distinct pleasure of chairing. Dr. Jeffrey Rockwell from Canada, Dr. Nicolas Arnis from Canada, Maria Dolores Souza from Chile, Andrea Millwood Hargrave from UK, Trisha Ray from India, and Cordell Green, our working group chairman from Jamaica. We would love to hear your ideas on how we can improve the AI4IA experience. Please feel free to drop us your feedback at ai4iaconference@gmail.com. And now it is time for us to gather on GatherTown platform by using the link in the chat. There, we will be treated to over 50 brilliant presentations from an array of global experts. Thank you.
Thank you, Samriti. Thanks, everybody. This was fantastic. Have a good day, everyone. See you on GatherTown.